Successes and remaining challenges in Springfield, Ohio. Ahead on Face the State, it's been 9 months since false claims about Haitian immigrants in Springfield put the city in the eye of a national storm. Now today, a deportation deadline looms for the Haitian immigrants that the leaders call crucial to the area's economy. Springfield Mayor Rob Rue joins me in studio to talk about the successes and challenges in his city. Also, major tax cuts, school funding, money for a new Cleveland Browns stadium. It's all in the $60 billion state operating budget. How the big bill could affect you and your kids. Plus,
you can't solve it diplomatically. You use overwhelming military power to solve it, and then you get the hell out of there before it ever becomes a protracted conflict.
the Trump doctrine, what Vice President J.D. Vance laid out during a visit to his home state of Ohio. Thanks for joining us for Face the State. I'm Doug Petcash. 9 months ago, during a presidential debate, President Trump amplified false claims that Haitian immigrants in Springfield were eating cats and dogs. That led to turmoil, threats, and tension in the city. That controversy aside, the city of about 60,000 was experiencing rapid population growth. Last month, Governor DeWine went back to check in on Springfield to see how it's moving forward past that challenging time. He says the city is rising to meet the challenges.
This is a community that's on the move. This is a community that is moving forward.
Moving forward with the passage of time. 8 months after false claims about Haitian immigrants harming pets brought a crush of negative attention to the city, DeWine says the feeling in Springfield is much different.
The high level of kind of crisis feeling certainly is gone. That is gone. Things are normal.
That's the message DeWine received Monday during a meeting with roughly 40 Springfield city and community leaders. This was a check-in after the state pumped in resources to help ease the strain of the controversy and rapid population growth at Springfield schools, in public safety, and in healthcare. A mobile clinic the state set up to help clear a backlog of patients is now gone.
The community's existing primary care resources are able to meet the needs.
State funding is also helping with projects to transform 2 old buildings downtown into retail space and about 150 apartments. But many businesses rely on Haitian employees, and uncertainty looms over the legal status of thousands of immigrants in the area. Governor DeWine says businesses are worried because temporary protected status for many of those immigrants expires on August 3rd unless the Trump administration renews it. Companies would not be able to employ them.
That is a big concern. It was a big concern that was expressed today.
And a big concern among the immigrant community. Jacob Payan is a U.S. citizen, a business owner, and a leader in the Haitian community.
A lot of people are living in fear because if you become now illegal based on your expired document, you're subject to deportation.
Now, Jacob Payan says some Haitians have left Springfield, but others are holding on to hope as the August 3rd deadline approaches. Governor DeWine addressed the temporary protected status of Haitian immigrants again this past week.
Well, I thought it was significant that, the president made a week or so ago some comments in regard to people who are in the agriculture, that maybe they would pull that back. In other words, a realization of the fact that these are individuals who are essential to our economy. And I think that, the more we see in that area, I'm hopeful that maybe the president will look at manufacturing as well, because many of the Haitians are involved in manufacturing in Springfield.
Joining me now is Springfield Mayor Rob Rue. Mayor, thank you so much for coming here today to talk with us.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you again. Well, let's start there. What is the latest that you've heard in terms of the temporary protected status for the Haitians?
We're hearing what everybody else is hearing. We're kind of bracing for the ever-changing thoughts of the government and what they're doing. So we're trying to just make sure we're keeping our citizens safe and controlling the narrative as much as we can, and then making sure that if there's any concern being expressed, that it's in a safe way.
And I guess how worried are you, or what's your thought process right now if it does expire on August 3rd, and what happens to employers there as well as the Haitians in the community?
I'm concerned definitely for the negative effect of a large amount of employees needing to be let go or released because of federal policy, and how that'll affect the industry.
Is there anything the city or the state can do to help out in that situation, or is this all federal right now?
This is all federal. We'll comply with federal policy as we always have been in previous administrations, and we will in this administration as well.
And you heard Jacob Payan say in that piece that he knows that some Haitians have left Springfield. Are you noticing that?
We're definitely seeing what I would say a visible decrease in some of our immigrant community. I don't know if they're staying inside or if they're just trying to stay quiet, but there definitely has been a difference in the last several months.
I know that some of them were concerned about being deported, and with the ICE raids that were starting. Has there been much of that going on in Springfield in terms of immigration services?
We're seeing a decrease in there was a concern on folks coming in and receiving services from the county, and we've seen a decrease in that as well.
Okay. On the flip side, the surge in population in a very short time put a strain on the city's resources. How challenging was that, and where does it stand now?
So we're still seeing, we've not seen the increase in the schools as far as the amount of enrollment in the schools. So that's kind of leveled off. And we're not seeing, honestly, we haven't seen the accidents that we were in the past. I don't know if that worked. That was one of the original concerns, is there was folks on our roads that didn't know how to drive, and we've seen a decrease in those as well.
I had a lot of people come up to me in those early days last September and the community, and they would just say, look, the Haitians are good people. They work hard. They just can't drive. Yeah. I had several that actually said that, and I know the governor and actually our Dom Taberi helped out with that situation as well. Are you seeing a lot of people using those driving simulators to learn?
The last I spoke with Director Wilson, I don't know if the use of those devices are getting as much use as they had hoped, but at the same time, I think the word has got out within the Haitian community. Don't drive illegally, learn how to drive, and be safer on the roads that you get to be a part of.
Can you take us back to that difficult time 9 months ago now, and just how much it impacted the city?
Well, it was such a fast infusion of attention on the national stage. We were reeling and trying to handle it the best we could. So compared to now, it's being in a hurricane or not in a hurricane, the way it felt. And I coined it a political vortex at the time. We were caught up in this political vortex and so many different opinions being shot at us and attention. And compared to now, that's not the case.
Yeah, was it a frightening time too, or
Absolutely.
just a tense time because you had so many of the bomb threats and things that were coming
it was
in?
Absolutely. Bomb threats to our school system. Fear. Our kids were concerned. Our families were concerned, and there was individual threats to, as you know, to the political leaders and some of the leaders in our community. It was a very scary time.
Now, I know you're a part-time mayor.
Yeah, very much.
And when you saw this starting to unfold, was there any way to possibly even prepare for it?
I don't think so. I always try to approach this from our city as this is a human situation. My concern was for the folks that were here. So I always try to take that approach when I was representing the city. And at the same time, our city was being mischaracterized on a national scale, and that's why I spoke out so much. Mm-hmm. That's why I took every interview, because our city was being said on a national level in a negative way, and it wasn't true.
So how different is it today compared to then, the temperature in the city?
I think it's moderate for sure. It's definitely leveled out compared to what it was. I think people want to know what's going to happen if ICE comes into our community. We're not making policy based on speculation. We're definitely watching the same news that everybody else is, and we're trying to prepare in such a way that we can be very calm in the approach.
What things are you focused on right now in terms of serving those in your community, the residents of Springfield and the surrounding area?
Well, we've still had a good forward momentum in our community, even through the last several months. So we have seen a lot of growth, and we've seen a lot of housing growth in our community, and those things are still happening.
New housing?
new housing, new residential development downtown in our community as well as on the outskirts of our community.
I mentioned those two buildings that are basically on either side of City Hall, right downtown. Buildings that have been there a long time, but are starting to get a new life.
Yeah.
How important are those projects to kind of, I don't want to say revitalizing downtown, but to pumping up that area?
Very much revitalizing downtown. I mean, you're looking at 160 market rate apartments in downtown Springfield, and they're nice quality apartments. So we're excited about that.
Other projects like that going
yeah,
on?
I mean, there's 1,200 homes being built on the east side of Springfield. It's a major development. So we're definitely, things are still happening, and that did not slow down. We're grateful for that. And I think in large part, that's how the leaders in Springfield responded to this, is that didn't slow that growth.
What would you say right now then is the biggest challenge that the city is facing?
Well, I mean, just like any other community, legacy community, we still need economic growth. We still need to focus on there's been gun violence in our community, like in every other community, and we're focused on that and trying to curb that as well, and meet with community leaders and stakeholders.
I understand the numbers are up this year as far as gun or gun violence goes compared to past years, but it was never like a high number. How concerned are you about it?
I know this is, I don't mean this trait, but one is a high number, and
True.
Anybody would say that, but I mean that, and it's painful to see, particularly youth gun violence. So we're trying to meet with folks to handle that as best as possible.
The Springfield News-Sun reported that a community violence prevention grant for the city was abruptly canceled by the federal government soon after approving budget revisions. I think it was $1.25 million that would have gone for gun violence prevention efforts. How frustrating is that not to have that money come in for you?
Well, it's incredibly frustrating. There's funds being allotted to handle something that's a problem, and now it's not there. That's frustrating, especially for a community like Springfield, Ohio.
What do you have to say about the way your mid-sized city responded in this crisis time and has continued to respond with your staff, employees, residents?
I'm very proud of Springfield. I'm very proud of the leaders. I mean, we've come together to solve problems. When there's a crisis, we come together, and that is the beauty and the strength of Springfield, Ohio.
Was the influx of the Haitians, the estimates are 12 to 15,000 came in a very short period of time. Was that kind of like a surprise that many people came, and how to deal with it? Because I understand that some of it was word of mouth in the community, and that drew them in.
Yeah, I mean, it was an absolute surprise to me that the numbers were so high. I mean, you definitely could see there was different members of our community coming in, but that number was really high to me, and I was surprised when we started to learn that. And that's wanting to know, how did we get to that point without knowing that this many folks were coming to our community, that we are increasing by 10 to 20% of our population in such a short time? Who knew that, and why weren't we informed of that? That was a concern at the time.
Is the 58,900 number for the population like accurate now, or is it above
That's
that?
That's the number we
influx?
had prior to the influx.
So you're looking at like 72,000 or so now?
I mean, we don't have a census, but yeah.
Wow. So what's your focus now, I guess, in the next, what is it, about 5 or 6 weeks heading up to that August 3rd TPS deadline?
I mean, it's watch and wait, and it's watch and see. We had a rumor that was spread that was not true last week, that the ICE agents were in town. It was not true. But we're concerned about also the social media, explosion of that. We don't want that to happen as well. So we try to get the truth out there as much as possible, as quickly as possible.
Part of the reason you're here.
That's exactly why I'm here.
Have you said that early on, you took every interview.
Yeah.
Did you feel that it was really important for you as the mayor to be the lead voice out there, debunking things, but also letting people know what was going on?
It's funny you say that. I actually was not ready to do these interviews, and I had some community leaders come around me and say, we need to hear from you. And this was right before the bomb threats happened, and then the bomb threats happened, and then our city was being mischaracterized. And I just took every interview that was, most interviews, some interviews were coming from around the world, and I didn't do that. They wanted to talk about what wasn't true. But I wanted to speak directly to what was being said at our city. So I took every local and national interview I could take.
Another one of those things you didn't expect.
Did not. So it was trial by fire.
Yeah. Well, Mayor Rue, I do appreciate you driving here today to appear on the show and talking about the situation there. Best wishes to you as the city continues to grow and evolve.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Well, still ahead on Face the State. The Vice President comes home to Ohio to a sold-out crowd of supporters. His message about Iran. And next, a $60 billion budget. Why Republicans say it's great for Ohio, but no Democrats climbed on board. Welcome back to Face the State. The Ohio House and Senate passed the state's $60 billion two-year operating budget. It comes in at more than 6,000 pages. It lays out the future income tax you will pay, plus funding for public schools and much more. The governor can now sign it, or veto line item provisions he disagrees with. Republicans say the budget is great for Ohio. Democrats say not a single lawmaker in their party voted for it. The more than 6,000-page, $60 billion budget includes a $1.1 billion income tax cut. The plan is to lower the top state income tax rate and implement a single flat tax rate of 2.75% for the 2026 tax year. Republicans say it will spur the economy. Democrats say it only benefits wealthier Ohioans.
Those that have the upper levels that are in the upper income levels are going to turn around and use their savings and put it back into the economy of Ohio.
This taxing is not fair, it is not equitable, and we believe that.
Democrats also say the current budget hurts public schools by not fully funding the Fair School Funding Plan at current levels.
The issue around fully funding our schools, we were deeply concerned about that, continue to be, and for those reasons we cannot support the budget.
Opponents would say that this budget bill for education is a cut to public education. How do you respond?
Well, we're spending on K through 12, we're spending over $635 million more. We are largely keeping the Fair School Funding Plan in place. Nobody will receive less than they did, I think, in 2021.
Senate Finance Committee Chair Jerry Serino says the bill also provides significant property tax relief. It eliminates certain levies that can be put on taxpayers without voter approval and caps the amount of revenue districts can carry over to the next school year at 40%. Districts will have to give any money over that back to property owners, with exceptions for certain capital project funding.
We also don't want a repeat of the $10 billion last year that was sitting in the coffers of our school systems around the state, just unused.
Under the bill, the state will also provide a large amount of funding from the state's $4.8 billion unclaimed funds program for a new Cleveland Browns stadium in the suburb of Brook Park. Why did the Senate and the House agree to give the Cleveland Browns the $600 million out of the unclaimed funds program?
It's purely an economic development move. And by the way, it pays for itself. And it actually will go beyond paying for itself.
Many of those things that are so important to everyday Ohioans did not happen in our estimation for this budget. But yet there were money going to the wealthy.
Public school funding has been one of the most talked about topics of this budget. 10 TV's Carly Dion looks at how funding Ohio schools is being addressed.
You're going to see a lot of levies on the ballot in the next year or two because of this.
Advocates for public education disappointed in what they're calling cuts to funding for public schools. Democrats say it falls short of the Fair School Funding Plan.
What we passed today is not the full Fair School funding formula.
State Senator Nikki Antonio says this is yet another example of broken promises in the budget, and there were no negotiations across the aisle when it came to many of the decisions that were made. She says the Republican majority claimed the current funding plan for school districts wasn't sustainable.
But then they found $600 million for a sports franchise. I mean, that shows me that it's just misplaced priorities.
Antonio is referring to the $600 million allocated to build a new football stadium for the Cleveland Browns. But many Republicans argue they're actually increasing funding to public education in this budget.
We just raised spending in public schools over $600 million.
Look, when you look at the amount of money we've put into public schools over the last three budgets, $4.5 billion of increases over that course of that time frame.
State Senator Rob McCauley says he believes people are upset about the property tax provisions included in the budget. He claims right now 70% of all Ohioans' property taxes go towards their school district.
And when we see school districts carrying over, in some cases, 70, 80, 90%, sometimes well over 100% of their annual expenditures year to year, it stands to be reasoned that there should be an explanation for why they need to carry over that much money while they're charging very high property taxes.
But education advocates beg to differ.
Everybody's upset about property taxes going up. This is going to make property taxes go up even more. If the state doesn't give us that money, the only recourse we have is to go to voters for property tax.
Senator McCauley says he doesn't believe the cuts to public education are as dire as some districts claim it to be.
I don't believe the hyperbole out there that somehow education is going to not be funded adequately.
Again, Governor DeWine can now sign the budget, veto it, or veto line item provisions he disagrees with. Still ahead on Face the State, Vice President J.D. Vance returns to Ohio to speak to a sold-out Republican crowd. His message about American action against Iran and what he calls the Trump doctrine. Vice President J.D. Vance returned to his home state on Tuesday for a big state GOP event. He spoke to about 1,000 Republican supporters at the Ohio Republican Party dinner at the Convention Center in Lima. We went there to hear what the vice president had to say about the conflict between Israel and Iran, the ceasefire, and America's role in it. Vance started his speech by joking that he was in Lima because there was nothing big going on in the world and it was a boring day at the White House. He then talked seriously about America's actions against Iran.
I gotta say, it feels like a great homecoming to be here in Lima today.
The Middletown, Ohio native gave the keynote address to a sold-out crowd at the Ohio Republican Party dinner. He talked about President Trump's decision-making leading up to the U.S. military bombings of 3 Iranian nuclear facilities.
He said it consistently through his second term, is that he does not want Iran to have a nuclear weapon.
He said the president negotiated with Iran for 60 days before ordering the airstrikes.
When the president realized that there was not going to be a peaceful settlement to that problem, he sent B-2 bombers and dropped 12 30,000-pound bombs on the worst facility and destroyed that program.
Vance laid out what he calls the Trump doctrine for avoiding another drawn-out conflict in the Middle East. Define the American interest, negotiate aggressively to achieve that interest, and use overwhelming force if necessary.
Not only did we destroy the Iranian nuclear program, we did it with 0 American casualties.
Ohio Republican Party Chairman Alex Triantafilou.
What do you think of the role that the vice president has played in all of this as it's played out?
Well, I think the American people know that in addition to being the Vice President of the United States, he's also a critical advisor, supporter, close confidant of the President of the United States.
Vice President Vance spoke for about 34 minutes. He also touched on illegal immigration and border security and the impact of the Trump tariffs. He also thanked all the supporters in the room for their hard work, saying he thinks Ohio will stay Republican red for a very long time. Ohio Republican Senator Bernie Moreno says he wants President Trump to receive the Nobel Peace Prize for his actions in Iran.
If it's viewed from the lens of whether you like President Trump or don't like President Trump, take that lens out and just give the man credit for the amazing accomplishment he did, and that's exactly what the Nobel Peace Prize was intended to do.
Senator Moreno introduced a resolution in the U.S. Senate to formally nominate the president for the Nobel Peace Prize. Thank you for joining me this week for Face the State. I'm Doug Petcash. I'll see you back here next Sunday at 11:30. Have a great day.